I have some requests to do Crystal Quest. God, I haven't played that game in ages. Let's see, apparently the 1987 game was remade for the Xbox Live back in 2006 by Stainless Games, the guys who made the Carmageddon games. Well, this might not be exactly what they wanted me to review, but might as well check this thing out. I wonder how it controls. Alright, Crystal Quest for the Xbox Live is a 2-in-1 type of game. It has the classic game with slight alterations, and it has a shiny new version of the game. Let's start with the classic mode to first familiarize ourselves with how this game plays. The object of the game is to collect the crystals and escape through the gate when you have collected them all, but it won't be so easy to collect them. There are enemies out there who are trying to stop you, and the gate isn't always easy to enter, because you can die with just a touch to the sides. But lucky for us, we get a gun and some screen-clearing bombs to help us out. The gun, when fired, will shoot in the direction and velocity that your ship was moving in, which will lead to some tricky piloting. But since this game was made for the Xbox 360, the controls are very much simplified. In the original game, the ship was controlled by the mouse, and it would control the velocity of the ship, so tight movement wasn't as easy as it is in the Xbox version. While there is a slight ship drift in the Xbox version, the Mac version needed the mouse to constantly adjust the direction and speed of its movements, leading to more skill-based play. When I play the Mac version, I am constantly learning how to move to survive longer each time I die due to the slipperiness of the controls. In the Xbox Live version, I made it to level 35 on my first playthrough with 19 lives and 19 bombs with little issue, because it feels like I'm playing it on easy mode. The red bombs are so plentiful I could use a few on one level and be right back to my last count on the next, essentially making this game even that much more easier. While the game can seem like a cakewalk at times, you have many different types of enemies called nasties to contend with. Homing enemies, shooting enemies, mine-laying enemies, exploding enemies, and more. Mine-laying enemies are especially annoying since, besides the regular mines in the level, they leave mines that look slightly like crystals, meaning if you don't pay too close attention or there was little in the way to get by that mine, goodbye ship. But hey, dying can be a strategy to get rid of the mines because when you die, all enemies and their mines despawn, allowing you to collect these last remaining crystals that you possibly couldn't get before. And I did learn that there is a menu slider to adjust the difficulty for both versions of the game, which ramps up the speed at which enemies appear, leading to some overwhelming situations on the hardest difficulty. Since this is an arcade-style game, the main objective, besides moving on to higher levels, is to collect points. Points are awarded when collecting crystals, giant crystals, point scores, and when killing enemies. There is also a timer at the top corner of the screen, which allows you to see how long you've been spending on a level. If you complete a level within a short period of time, you'll be awarded a time bonus. I love the quirky sound effects for this game. It makes it that much more unique. I can hardly think of another arcade-style game that has such interesting sounds. The only difference between the original Mac version and the Xbox Live version was that the level transition noise is modified to not sound like an orgasm. There is a soundtrack, but to get the full classic experience, I usually turn it down in the options, though it is an alright electronic beat that plays forever throughout the entire game. Aw man, those classic bright colored graphics, I just love them. They pop against the black background, allowing everything to stand out, and the designs for the enemies are varied enough so that you can immediately identify what is going to be a problem and what you can work around. Overall, I think this version of the game is a great way to have the ability to play the original again without having to go through the hoops of having an old Mac or using emulation. The issues involved with running this game in emulation for the footage led me to get this version of the game. The controls might take away part of the original authenticity of slipperiness, but as one person who never got too far on the Mac version, I gotta say I like them. Most everything that was in the original is here, and the adjustable difficulty is a nice feature for both the inexperienced and the veteran of players. Now on to the new remastered version of the game. The first noticeable difference here is the graphics. They're going for a more modern, slick approach, with a rainbow colored border, background with some design, movement blur for the ship, and more animated enemies. Everything is presented to appear up to date with other Xbox Live titles. It's okay, but I prefer the older look. The next noticeable difference is the way your ship controls. While you can control the ship like you did in the original, you now have the ability to move with the left stick and freely shoot in any direction with the right, giving it that Geometry Wars, Smash TV, twin stick feel. Very smooth. And it's a bit more forgiving due to a shield that allows you to touch the gates for a small amount of time, making it so you don't die over and over again due to bad aim. And then we come to the first major issue I have with this version of the game. The sound effects are absolutely terrible. They're very cutesy-ish, fantasy-ish sounding, which totally does not do this game justice. And that's why I dished out the extra money to buy one of the 5 DLCs for the game. The DLC covers sound effects, an extra difficulty mode, and graphical differences. Unfortunately, the only thing we have is a description of what you're going to buy, not a sample, so you're going to have to hope for the best for some of these. That's why the only risk I took was to make the sound effects more synthy, going for a more space-like feel. And it fits. I hate that the sound effects that should have been default are behind a DLC barrier. But hey, it's not too expensive when the game is only $5. But god, does this game really need animal sound effects? The other annoying thing about the DLC is that you have to restart the game every time you want to enable or disable the DLC. Overall, this version of the game is alright, but it doesn't feel like it has the same soul into it. It's smooth to play, fun, and if you get the DLC, you can tolerate the sound effects. But I feel the main reason to get this game is to experience the classic Crystal Quest on the TV, without all the hoop jumping for the average consumer. If you have $5 and Xbox 360, I encourage you to try it out. And if you have an old Macintosh or a Macintosh emulator, I encourage you to try it out. Because this is a game that I'm sure many have not experienced, and those who have either remember it fondly or its original frustrating difficulty. And I want people to try it out because this is something unique, something that was made in the early years of gaming, one of those first good Macintosh games. Hell, this game was not only made for the Macintosh and Xbox 360, but also Palm, Game Boy, Amiga, and the iPhone OS. So if you can, please play one of gaming's rarely talked about classics. Thanks for watching. Any feedback on this video or any of my other videos would be appreciated. If you want to get in contact with me, message me on YouTube or Twitter. And if you want to see any of my previous work or my last reviews, click the links provided.